Greetings, everyone. As I am sure all of you, or at the very least most of you know, the PlayStation 5 Pro has recently been announced, and there has been considerable, um, you know, disagreement with it, specifically about the price. Um, the console is going to be $700. It is the cheapest in the US, and it's going to be even more expensive than $700 everywhere else. No disk drive, no stand, not included, whatever. You know the deal. But amongst the criticisms and amongst the comments and amongst the dismay and amongst all the mockery and the videos and whatnot, I noticed repeatedly instances of hypocrisy within the gaming community, and this is not the first time that I've spotted it personally. And it just goes further to demonstrate, in my mind, how the biggest enemy of the gaming community is not the evil corporations, but it is the gaming community itself. Within this group of gamers, you are very likely to find extremely stupid people who can't see beyond their own noses, who buy stuff like RGB keyboards and just fall to trends, no matter how stupid or dumb they may be. Now, I myself do not agree with the PlayStation 5 Pro at all. I don't think it's a console that should have existed. I think it should have been a one-time thing that happened with the previous generation because it launched in a horrible state. And that is where I'm going to start this take of mine, or this argument of mine. The previous generation, the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4, and specifically the Xbox One, launched in a very, very, very weak state. They were pretty anemic when they first arrived. A lot of people were saying they haven't been out for a few months and we're already seeing games struggling. They can't even hit 1080p, stuff like that. Simultaneously, you had 4K TVs dropping out everywhere, and they thought they can hit two birds with one stone. Now that console, the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One, were only $100 more expensive than the base model, which got a price cut when those things released. So if you had waited, you could have now gotten an upgraded PlayStation 4 for the exact same price, or you could have saved even more and gotten a PlayStation 4 Slim that uses slightly less power for $300. Now, even in that generation, where people were like, "Oh wow, PlayStation 4 Pro, that's great, Xbox One X, the most powerful console, whatever," I was surprised when later on I found out that the previous generation closed up, and PlayStation 4 had sold somewhat like 15%. 15% of all PlayStation 4s in the wild are PlayStation 4 Pros. The rest are base models and slim models. So even when the upgrade made extreme sense because the base console was very bad, I could not play Resident Evil 2 Remake on the original PlayStation 4. I could not stomach it. It looked like the frame rate was so jarring and it was so choppy that I just could not tolerate looking at it. I had to wait till the Pro to play that game. But even then, when that upgrade made a lot of sense, people just did not buy it. People stayed with the base model because it's cheaper or because they did not want to pay to upgrade. Now, if you can't trade in your current console, obviously that's understandable. It would feel like a waste. But still, even in the PlayStation 4, where it made a lot of sense, and I'm pretty sure they were still at least initially were selling it at a loss, that's PlayStation and Microsoft, just to get it into your home and recuperate the cost through accessories and game sales. Even then, people did not buy it. Now, fast forward to the PlayStation 5, when it first released, I remember unanimously people were very, very pleased with the hardware. They were like, this is a very significant generational leap. I'm pretty sure we don't need a PlayStation 5 Pro or a Pro console this generation. Hopefully that was a one-time thing that happened with the previous gen because it launched in a very, very bad state. But within a year of the PlayStation 5 coming out, people were struggling to get it because of all the scalpers and because of all the supply chain issues and COVID and whatnot. And even then, within a year, people were like, where is the PlayStation 5 Pro? When is the PlayStation 5 Pro? What is going to be in the PlayStation 5 Pro? How's the Pro going to look? To the point where Digital Foundry made a video about it, mocking the situation, saying we don't understand why people are asking for a Pro console. This is definitely not needed this generation. So this is the first point of hypocrisy where I've seen people say, you know, this console, its release and its pricing is out of touch. I strongly disagree. This thing exists because people asked for it. It is 100% in touch with the community because people asked for it. It is the gaming community who did it to itself, not Sony. I'm not saying Sony are angels. They are perfectly capable of being diabolical and evil, and they're a corporation at the end of the day. We are definitely starting to see arrogant Sony again. But don't tell me that this is out of touch. Gamers, those same people buying RGB keyboards, they asked for this, and now they're not going to buy it. Second point I see is like, oh, I can't tell the difference between the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro graphics. So you're telling me you can't see the difference between 1080p or like any other resolution and 4K? Really, it took you this long to realize that you can't tell the difference while sitting at a healthy distance from your TV. Only now you're realizing this, because I could swear that a week ago, or when was this thing announced, like if you dial back the clock like 10 days, everybody was acting super disgusted of any resolution that's not 4K. I was super surprised to hear when Mark Cerny said that like 3/4 of players play on performance. Well, who the hell bought all those 4090s then? Like, what? Now you're telling me people don't care about 4K? All these developers making games that run at fucking Casio wristwatch frame rates, running at 30 frames per second barely in 2024 just to hit 4K, all of those devs are working off of like flawed statistics, and people actually don't care about resolution? Really? Because I don't care about resolution. I don't think any resolution is worth playing at fucking 30 FPS. I think 60 should be the absolute minimum, and we should be pushing beyond that. We should be pushing for 120 frames at the very least. And most that should be like performance versus resolution. Resolution should be whatever gets you 60, and performance should be whatever gets you 120. But apparently a lot of people still don't have 120 Hz capable TVs, and that's why they don't feel like as obligated to do that. But to argue that you can't tell the difference, now you're saying you can't tell the difference? Because I've been saying this for years and people have been mocking me and telling me I don't have eyes. They've been claiming that, oh, the difference between 4K and 1080p is clear as day. I can't even look at an image that's not 4K, it like hurts my eyes. But ask them to pay like $200 extra for it, and like, what? I can't tell the difference. What the fuck is this? Again, hypocrisy. And so I really don't understand, man. Like, do people not realize that they do it to themselves? Like, these situations arise because people are stupid? They asked for the PlayStation 5 Pro. Like, they scream 4K at the top of their lungs for years, and then they claim they can't tell the difference in the footage. Now, yeah, obviously, Sony botched the reveal video because they couldn't even demonstrate the difference between, like, upscaled 4K efficiently. But still, now you tell me you can't tell the difference? Well, what have we been doing up until this point? Again, a lot of games released running at fucking laughable frame rates just to hit 4K for you, Mr. Gamer, you, Mr. RGB keyboard. And now you're saying you can't tell the difference? Because they're asking you to specifically pay $200 more for a Pro console? So when Sony saw the launch, like the adoption rates of the PlayStation 4 Pro, they thought, like, we don't need to lose money on this. And that is something understandable, because why would they again sell you this at a loss? Maybe they are still, I don't know. I assume they're not. But, like, they would argue, like, why would we need to lose money on this? We know that most people are going to stick with the PlayStation 5 base anyway. So this is a product that's aimed at, like, at the most 10%, 15% of the community. We might as well not lose money on it. And I would argue that makes sense. So, like, you have never had more options than you have this generation. You can buy a slim PlayStation 4 base, like a slim PlayStation 4 used at a discount, and play pretty much everything. And you can go as high as the PlayStation 5 Pro. The second, like, another argument I keep hearing is like comparing it to PCs. I assure you, a console will never be the same as a PC. PCs and consoles, like, they are aimed at completely different people. Bob from accounting, first of all, a lot of people, like, they associate computers with work because a lot of people work with computers. So the last thing they want to see when they come back home is another computer screen and the mouse and keyboard attached to it. I have heard that argument. I myself work with computers at work. I don't have that sentiment, but I have heard it before. Second, a computer, a PC, is way more difficult for you to build. What are you going to build now? If you today decide to build, like, not just a $700 PC, say $1,000, which processor are you going to choose? Intel is having the meltdown issue with voltages, and I'm sure you maybe you don't know about this. You can Google it, you can research it on YouTube. A lot of people are talking about the fact that apparently Intel CPUs have a very, very deep problem with motherboards, where the motherboard is pushing more voltage than necessary into the CPU and is causing CPUs to fail. Blame has been shifted back and forth between the motherboard manufacturers and Intel, and it eventually turned out that it was Intel's fault themselves. So you're going to buy an Intel processor? I assume not. Well, why not go with AMD? Ryzen processors are great. They've been, like, apparently dominating Intel for a long time. But now you have a Windows release, Windows 11, that is botching performance, slashing performance of Ryzen CPUs. So which CPU are you going to go with, huh? Say you decide on a CPU, which motherboard? How do you decide where to put your money? What if it turns out after you bought the parts that, like, oh, you could have actually gotten the other motherboard, which is actually a little bit better. It could have, like, gotten you a little bit more performance, has slightly, like, better cooling or whatever, more compatible with whatever thing. What RAM are you going to choose? Which graphics card? How big is the power supply? Like, you're telling me Bob from accounting and the average mom who wants to get her son something to play is going to do these things? Absolutely not. Even after you've done all those things, and you're dealing with the horrible operating system that is Windows, extremely inconsistent, bricks itself through updating, causes issues out of the blue without you doing anything yourself. I had to uninstall Microsoft Office on my entire machine because it would gobble up resources. I would switch the PC on, and the CPU, RAM, and network usage and disk are, like, at near 100%. I'm like, okay, maybe the thing is updating. I left it running for 24 hours, and it was still running like that. It was glitched. It was caught in the loop. I would restart. I boot into safe mode. I just couldn't find any solution to it. I had to uninstall the program, even though I occasionally use it. So this is PC. On top of all of that, a game releases, for example, say Dead Space Remake, and you have no control over how it fucking performs because it has, you know, shader compilation stutter and traversal stutter all over, and you can do nothing. It doesn't matter how powerful your hardware is. You can have two fucking 4090s running an SLI. I know that's not a thing anymore. And you can have, like, 3 fucking CPUs, like 2 Ryzens and an Intel i9 on top of that, and you can't get rid of the stutter. But someone else might not have that issue. So, like, to argue that, like, consoles and PCs can coexist is bullshit. On a console, this is why I am here while discussing this issue, this game runs like ass on PlayStation 5. It runs like absolute dog shit. The best way for you to play it is to play the PlayStation 4 version in backwards compatibility on PlayStation 5. That's how you get stable 60. The PlayStation 5 version runs like ass. Whose fault is that? It's the developer's fault. It's From Software's fault 100%. And it's the devs who are unable to use the hardware of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series this generation that is causing all the problems. It is not the hardware itself. The hardware is fine. But gamers ask for it, and devs are like, we want to pretend that this stuff is difficult. So yeah, that's why you get the PlayStation 5 Pro and you're expected to pay $200 more for it. But please, for the love of God, don't. Just don't cry and say it is out of touch because you're the reason this exists. Well, not you, hopefully, but, like, you know what I'm talking about. And don't say, like, oh, the price is too high because, like the base console on both sides is now costing, like, what, $550? And don't say you can't tell the difference because you claiming to see the difference has caused us to be here in the first place with multiple games running at 30 FPS barely, just to hit the 4K mark. Because you claim you could tell the difference. And don't say PCs because you know that's never going to happen. PCs or consoles are extremely different. Here you buy a game, if it doesn't run properly, the one thing you can do is write about it, complain, and hope that the developers fix it. And if they don't fix it, at least you have the same experience that everybody else is going through. On PC, you have to constantly play the mechanic. And you have to like, what do I do? Like, I play Resident Evil 4 Remake. It doesn't run flawlessly on the PlayStation 5. It does have frame drops, but at least I can live peacefully knowing that everybody else has the exact same version. On PC, I bought the game again for reasons that are not relevant. It doesn't support DLSS. I had to download a mod for DLSS to work, and then I spent, like, I couldn't enjoy the game. Every 2 meters I run, if there's a dip in the FPS, I have to go into the settings, I have to open up Google, and I have to tinker with it and see, like, how the fuck I can get rid of this. And I don't know if it's my hardware's fault, if it's my software's fault, or if it's developer's fault. So yeah, I don't like that the PlayStation 5 Pro exists. I think the PlayStation 5 base is good enough. It is shitty developers who don't know how to utilize the hardware, with games releasing with stutter and game releasing with unbearable frame rate like Elden Ring here. It is the devs' fault, it is not the hardware's fault. We should not have gotten a Pro console this generation. But it is because gamers claim that they wanted a PlayStation 5 Pro. It is gamers claiming that they can tell the difference between 4K and whatever other resolution. It is this hypocrisy that got us here. So yeah, the greatest enemy we have is not the corporations. They contribute enough. Trust me, I will likely make a video next talking about my thoughts on that. But a lot of the damage that is bestowed upon us is self-inflicted. Gamers themselves are stupid, inconsistent, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They just hop on trends, they repeat whatever the last guy said, they parrot it, and then whatever they're asked to pay extra money, they cry. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this particular subject. Maybe I'm going to make another video talking about like how corporations actually like are to blame in a lot of the gaming, like current gaming landscape situation. So yeah, thank you all for listening if you made it this far, and see you next time.